Ooze. My only real encounter with the weird is something I'm not totally sure about. It happened, I can say that much for certain, but what was it, or why? That is a mystery to me now and probably forever. At the time, it was mid-2000s, and I was 15 years old, walking my newspaper delivery route in Cresco, Iowa. Basically, I grew up in Cresco, and in that time it had its share of fucked up stuff happen. Not like Stranger Things, though. The more awful, mundane, human kind of fucked up. In 2001, a carnival worker killed a 25-year-old woman and her 8-year-old daughter, then told his mother he didn't know why he did it. That's the kind I mean. Thankfully, this isn't that kind of story. On this particular morning, like every other, I left my house and started down the sidewalk, north, towards the intersection. On my way was a large 3-story apartment building that I believe used to be an old school, and was, at least back then, used as storage by the adjoining fitness center. Just beyond the fitness center was the mouth of an alleyway, and it was about there when a strange feeling began to overtake me. The feeling was that something undefinable, but very real, was very, very wrong. Imagine a heaviness in the stomach, and the creeping sensation of unease. Trying to find the source of my discomfort, I looked into the alley and saw the strangest, hell, the creepiest thing ever. Underneath the lamppost, illuminated by the light, was a puddle of darkness. I have no idea what it was. It moved and rippled like water, but definitely wasn't. It was thicker, heavier, like ooze. Some people I've told this story to have said it was probably oil, but I don't think that's right either, and I'll tell you why. I never got close to the stuff. My survival instinct was too goddamn strong, and instead I kept on walking. Maybe 30 minutes later, the sunrise, still some way off, and the shadows just as heavy as when I first passed, I came back to the mouth of the alleyway, and that ooze was gone. So far as I know, oil does not evaporate, and it seems unlikely someone would have done such a thorough job of cleaning so early in the morning. Even then, I think it probably would have left a stain on the concrete. What the hell was it? A figment of my imagination? A doorway to hell? Ooze from another world? I don't know. And Paul, if I know anything, I know that there are now some Ninja Turtles living in Cresco, Iowa.
Well, nothing surprises me. Cresco has a few strange things going on in that particular place, so I'm not surprised.
Does it?
It's allegedly one of the most haunted theatres in the Midwest, Cresco.
No shit.
Yeah, it's got vaudeville. I think vaudeville, is that right? Performers.
Right,
Often seen on stage and then disappear.
No kidding.
And then it's also got one of those brilliant ghosts that sits in the audience watching people do runs and practice their lines and stuff, and when people spot them and try to approach them, they disappear.
No shit. Interesting. I mean, that's going to come up again later in the show. The idea of spotting people who then disappear after you see them, but I wasn't aware of that in Cresco.
Yeah. It's a very well renowned. There are some very strange. There are a couple of very odd stories in Iowa that make me chuckle. There's one in particular that I'll save for later that makes me laugh because it's such a ridiculous ghost story. It's brilliant.
Sweet. I love ridiculous ghost stories. The only thing I could really find from Cresco in terms of, mind you, I was looking for the more human stuff that the author was talking about. I found there was a really interesting missing person, or I should say, I guess not a missing person, a murder from, I think it was 1975, if I remember right. Yeah. In 1975, the body of a woman named Connie Kraft was discovered in a gravel pit northwest of Cresco, the Albion gravel pit. Are you familiar with the case?
I've heard her name before, yes.
I guess she was going to a cosmetology school in, I think, Rochester, Minnesota, just across the state line.
What is a cosmetology school?
Like an esthetician kind of, I think, like that, like makeup.
Oh, all right. So, well, we call them, we're very original here in the UK. We call them beauty schools.
Right. I don't know why. I mean, I don't even know if that's still a term. The article I found mentioned that. I don't know if that term is still used.
Well, it makes more sense. It makes it sound more important. Cosmetics, cosmetology. Sounds good to me.
It makes sense, yeah. So she was going to cosmetology school, but she came home to visit her family, and she was last seen on the steps of the old armory about 12:30 at night, just across from the police station. And the next morning, a body was found in the quarry. Now, the coroner, I guess, fixes the time of death at 1:30 in the morning. So whatever happened to her happened between when she was last seen at 12:30 and 1:30. And it's kind of terrifying when you think about it, because that's an hour to go from totally mundane hanging outside shit to just gone from this earth. And I understand that's a thing that just happens, but it's a terrifying thought.
I think it's peculiar. The more true crime programs I watch and documentaries, it is quite frightening the amount of serial killers that were running amok across the US in the 70s. What happened to her is straight out of Ted Bundy's playbook.
Is it?
Yeah, he used to hit people over the head.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because, of course, the only marks found on her were consistent with what would have been either a rock or a blunt instrument on her head.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, who knows? I mean, there's not many of them that were wandering about at that particular time, and some of the terrifying numbers that they got. I mean, you only have to look at, I think there was like 5 different serial killers all active at the same time in LA in the late 70s. So
Jesus Christ. As if LA wasn't dangerous enough.
Hillside Strangler, and then you'd got there was another woman who was called Bundy, and her husband, he was going around decapitating people and stuff, and obviously you got the Golden State Killer, and yeah, great.
Good times. At least real estate was cheap back then, although for a reason.
It wasn't then the Night Stalker turned up and everybody moved out.
See, what you got to do, you just buy some property, go back in time, buy some property in Southern California, and just wait for them to take lead out of everything. And boom, Bob's your uncle. Got yourself some real valuable real estate down there.
Yep. I'll bear that in mind when I invent it.
Perfect. Yep, that's pretty much my plan. Yeah, the whole Cleopatra thing was taken off the table when I found out about deodorant being a modern invention.
It's still to reach some places, from my experience.
Yeah, one of those places is my gym. Just briefly before we head on to the next story, it occurs to me, this is a little bit similar to the story from the Chicago episode. There was, I'm just going to find it really quick here. I'm certain we had a similar story in the Chicago episode.
Yeah, it rings a bell with me.
Yeah, here it is. It's the Blob. So it wasn't ooze in the ground, but they used the same terminology. They said it had a kind of flowing quality, like a blob of oil hovering in one spot, like a lava lamp. Interesting.
Yeah.
And that person, they just saw it floating there as they were commuting outside of Chicago. But what an odd thing to have turn up again.
Yeah, and it's not in the scheme of things. It's still in the Midwest as well, isn't it?
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
It's a small trip if you're a disembodied body of ooze, I suppose.
That's it. It's a hell of a commute. I can't think of a news pun, Paul, and it's tearing me up inside.